everyone, and welcome once again to Royal Grown Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Micheal Beck. I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Mr. Rick Elliot.
Hello, hello.
And today we have a very special guest and longtime friend who's been a major part of this industry for a very, very long time. Huge influence on the nutrient scene, the way hydroponic stores, as they're currently known, evolved, is very heavily influenced by this group of people out of Canada who have been doing amazing work building nutrients, building stores, building the culture around cannabis and cultivation in Canada for a very long time. I'd like to welcome Justin Cooper to the show. Thanks.
Hey guys.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
You know, you've been a longtime friend and one of my larger influences in this sphere. One of the first people I met when I really hit the ground as a rep in the hydro industry, and I was told, oh, wait till you meet Justin, he's a legend. Wait till you meet these guys up at Green Planet, they're legends. And through the last decade, we've shared a lot of great times and good stories, and I agree, legendary stuff. But we haven't had an opportunity to like dig into the past and how you guys got to the point where Green Planet was this legendary thing and the Pacific Northwest Garden Supply stores were these kind of pinnacle mecca of hydroponic stores, definitely in Canada, but I know tons of US garden stores who are like, oh yeah, we modeled after PNW. So like, tell us a little bit about your past and like, how did you end up running garden stores in Canada in like the late 90s?
It's crazy, right? I was born in an area called Surrey, British Columbia. And I mean, I don't know if my reputation precedes me like legendary, but I mean, it just so happened we grew up, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in a space that was basically the epicenter of BC Bud. At the time, we didn't know it. At the time, we were just like, holy shit, people are using a lot of fertilizer and a lot of lights for growing tomatoes. Because, I mean, literally, you'd walk in a shop and you mentioned the word cannabis or anything of the sort. We'd be like, listen, I don't want to conspire to cultivate cannabis. We're avoiding getting charged. We know DEA's up here. We know they're heavily monitoring the way we behave. And, you know, we're young kids, but we're making sure we're doing things right. Not to say that we didn't have a past. And this is the way all my friends from high school put gas in their tank, including myself, right? But we had to be super careful in those days. And, you know, we didn't really jump on the scene and bang our drum for cannabis. We knew where it was going. We knew how it was done. I was pro-cannabis, but we had to be super cautious because we knew we were under the microscope. We knew that BC was the epicenter of where a lot of beef starts were coming from. Yeah. And they were flooding the U.S. market, and we got to see massive amounts of U.S. cash early 90s, and we were busy as shit. You know, my business partner, the founder of Pacific Northwest, my co-founder of Green Planet, we've been in business together, you know, 28 years.
Wow.
All right, and a dear friend of mine, and we've, you know, we hustled. The early 90s, we hustled, we ran, and, you know, literally pallets upon pallets of gear, you know, and just loading trucks, like, you know, it was highly competitive. Very aggressive time, and a lot of what we built collectively were employees having an opportunity to own a store, and we built the company from within. And I found that making other people successful was the secret to our sauce. It was the secret to our success. It was, you know, when you pour yourself into others, that's the one thing about the cannabis space. Was I love it because it was an opportunity for people to have a chance to succeed.
And that resonates so deeply in the cannabis industry. The fact that you've been business partners for 28 years,
yeah,
through all the deep hustle shows me, you know, shout out to Fat Bowl, that you guys are hustling with integrity. We actually had the opportunity of stumbling into the Fat Bowl store today and talking about that term. So I thought it's funny how that kind of just came together. But that's really what, to me, the cannabis industry was, especially in the early days when we had to be so careful. below the border, above the border, it was all illegal everywhere, and we
Yeah.
all had to be cautious. But we all knew what was going on.
And in the early 90s, you're saying, or even, anywhere really in the 90s, when you're talking about the cannabis cultivating retail, idea, that there was a few in the United States in the lower 48.
Yeah.
And they're legendary stores, and there's one in LA, one in Berkeley,
Yeah.
one up in Seattle. But for the average listener, they probably have no idea that most of the companies that are around now that they're familiar with weren't around in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think even Fox Farm started sometime in mid 90s.
Yeah.
Sunlight Supply was mid 90s.
I mean, it was GH. That's
Right.
it. General Hydroponics. I mean, Larry was a mentor of mine. I looked at Larry and I, early days, wanted to emulate his behavior. And if you ask Larry point blank, what was the spark that started it? He would literally say Pacific Northwest Garden Supply. Like, we sold and put GH on the map in BC. I can confidently say we worked really hard. Pure Blend, same thing.
Yeah.
Treg, these brands that now exist globally. We were the first to bring Canada to North America. We have a lot of firsts within the space, and that's because we visited lighting trade shows. We went all over the map trying to find and source unique products that would work within our space. Because our space is, you got to be a plumber, electrician, a horticulturist.
Yep.
There's lots of different areas, and early days was piecing together gardens with passion and as much technical know-how as you could have.
On the
we
down
were
low.
sponges. We were sponges for everything and anything tied to hydroponics.
Being weary of where you bought your supplies.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly constructing at the wee hours of the night to keep the trail
No kidding,
of what
right?
you're doing. Yeah.
Like, they grow plants, we grow customers. We've always been grower first, right?
Which is amazing. It was the infancy of an industry at that time too. There were only so many things that even really applied to those
Yeah.
customers, and you had to look to diversify that product offering. You had
Totally.
to really dig.
Yeah. Even Royal Gold. Here's a plug. I sourced Royal Gold because I knew it was in Humboldt. I knew the carbon footprint was better than shipping bagged nutrients over the ocean, or bagged cocoa over the ocean. I knew it was a Humboldt original. I was happy to say it's manufactured and processed in North America. And most importantly, I knew it worked. I liked the fiber of the cocoa you guys were using. I liked the product. I liked the branding. I liked the company. I liked what you stood for. And because of that, it had to be, it had to be in our lineup of offering. Because at Green Planet, we've cherry-picked the industry with the grower first mentality. I tried the product. I ran the product. When Terpinator came on the scene from Dennis, he's like, try it, you'll like it. And I was like, I have to have that. Like, we're literally, when products were found, we don't, hey, that worked, it didn't work. If we tried it, we liked it, we brought it to market, and we pumped the hell out of it because we knew it delivered what it said it did. And that was really important to us.
There's definitely something to say about the made for growers concept and
Yeah.
idea. We talk to our customers all the time about the standard that we're held to living in a place like Humboldt County, the Emerald Triangle. Like, you can't put out bad product here; you'll get hung for it.
Totally.
It's important. These our customers are our friends, our family, our cousins, nieces, neighbors. It's very, very important to keep that integrity.
Well, and luckily for us, we were able to work through that environment, and we made mistakes as Royal Gold. Like, you're building soil, you're evolving, you're creating product lines, and part of that is working with the community to make sure you don't keep making the same mistakes, or if you make a mistake, you handle it with integrity. Once again, you're like, hey, we have data. This is what happened. This is what you're saying happened in your data. Let's figure it out and meet in the middle, and we'll take care of you. And that allowed us to evolve the product to the point where it is, and we don't have those issues anymore because we have a lab and we have the data and we've learned from those mistakes. But I remember those first conversations with you when you wanted to bring Royal Gold on, and you were so passionate about it that it was contagious to me. I was like, yeah, This is, yeah, we're North America, we're doing it in Humboldt, yeah. And it sparked that fire because you carried that passion. So I have to imagine that's part of what your customers felt.
Yeah. I mean, when people ask us, we're like, this is it. This is what you want. This is what you're using. You know, it's not even ask. We tell people what they're going to use. It sounds so funny, right? But I don't ask any of my staff to sell. If you don't believe in any product we carry for whatever reason, don't sell it.
And that's the difference between what happened with the cannabis cultivation retail store reality. That's so different for any shopper that comes in that shopped and bought items and goods from any other store. Mm-hmm. When you compare the customer service that goes along with most stores, I won't say that all of them are held to that same standard, but that there's a culture there and there is an appreciation and a love for the plant. So fellow growers, we do share, with like-minded people. We enjoy that part of it. Mm-hmm. And that is what makes a good hydro store, is that customer service and not selling bullshit and actually, helping the customer succeed. It's something that you taught me, early on when I started working with Royal Gold was, that's the best thing you can do is help your customer succeed. Sometimes that's, taking our advice, but, at the end of the day, it's paving a clear picture of what's going to work for them in their reality, their experience, their grow scene, whatever they got set up. Everyone's going to be different. Every scene's going to be different. And them being successful that'll come back to you tenfold every time.
Totally. And when it does, they want to show you their crop. They want to share their flowers. They want to say, hey, look, I grew this with your products.
Yep.
And then you go see their garden. I mean, I was telling you earlier, like the craziest things from where we were gardens-wise, how certain people within the industry, we had Asian influences, we had so many different demographics that were growers, and they all do things differently, right? There were gardeners that would literally fill rooms in a whole house just with dirt, and they'd have little old ladies shoveling pounds and piles of weed in the basement. There was no drying racks. This was a time when bud was structure, color. No one knew what a trichome was. It was just being pumped out like crazy. It didn't have to be dry. It had to, basically you tie it in a knot just about because that was the market. And it was $3,200 a pound. It was a very, very crazy time.
And in the States during that time, because I started seeing Canadian cannabis in like 95, 96 is when I really started seeing it in Michigan, and it was sticky.
Yeah.
That's what they're like, oh, it's so good. You feel how sticky it is. I'm like, pretty sure that's wet. But, but it was
too.
green.
Yeah.
And the other options were still, south of the border, smashed, seedy junk weed, or you knew
Brown
two growers
brick.
that you could get like a quarter or an ounce from every 6 months. And, you had your super head stash that you'd get every now and again. But like BC became the standard smoking bud. And it was really interesting to see that diversity and like wondering at the time, like, how are these people doing this? Like, there's some really good, but there was a lot of trash coming through too.
For sure there was, but I mean, what was the alternative? Mexican bricks with like shoelaces and shit in it. Like,
oh yeah,
that was your competition. So we shone.
It was the color game for me. That's what I remember standing out. Growing up in New York, I remember Jamaican weed came over at a really light, fluorescent, almost color green, which was very different than Mexican bud. But yeah, with BC bud, definitely when it's hitting that mainstream market at a beautiful live green, that was a game changer for a lot of people.
Now, so to me, I associate that elevation in quality of BC weed that happened between the late 90s and really when it kind of clamped down a lot harder in the mid 2000s, mid to late 2000s when the border got way tighter and
9/11.
9/11, it really
That
started.
was a really
but then,
interesting time.
Then over the next 3 to 5 years, all those things came into place and it got a lot harder.
Yeah.
But the cannabis elevated significantly year to year to year to year.
I think every grower's had to up their game.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it again. There's a new evolution happening right now where if you're growing dubs, you're out of the game.
Yep, it's fire or nothing.
It's literally you have to bring the best. People are noticing the difference between LED and HPS lighting. We're seeing it again, a whole new evolution of genetics, blending, hybridization. We're seeing a lot of but that's where you do the best growing is in the valleys.
Yeah.
And I don't mean growing, I mean evolving is in the valleys. And I always get excited. It sounds funny, right? Because if growers are having a hard time making it, so are the stores, so are the manufacturers, so is everything. There's just price compression across the board.
Yeah, it trickles
But
down.
It does. And when that happens, we evolve. And, we're even looking at now adding an element of renewable energy to our stores.
I love that.
Right? Looking at, how do we evolve now in this space with respect to supply chains for food, right? We're right in the smack dab in the middle of COVID, and getting certain products right now from other areas in the world, shipping's gone through the roof.
Yep.
How do we look at becoming more self-sustainable in respect to solar, wind, and hydroelectricity? Now we can look at tiny homes. We're offering incinerating toilets, you name it. The whole range of products that we can look at. How do we live more local, more sustainably, and grow our food locally, right? So we're looking at other avenues that we can now plug into our hydro shops.
Right, and we're in the hydro industry selling products. We sell soil, you guys are selling nutrients, but yet we're pushing regenerative agriculture.
Awesome.
These are things that are like, it's counterintuitive. You sell soil, why would you push regenerative agriculture? Well, that's what these recipes were based on.
Totally.
That's what these concepts came as, is like, hey, let's kind of build a starter kit. Let's look at how nature builds regenerative soils.
I think
and
it's
old
great.
growth soils, and you look at the components and how to build fungus versus building bacteria. And these are concepts that weren't being applied to the products in the market 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So what value and inspiration was it that kind of led you and your partner from just, all right, we're picks and shovels, we're selling the products, you know what? We're going to develop our own nutrients. We can do this as well as anyone. We have ideas for products that will help gardeners. Where did Green Planet come from that?
So we always come from a mentality of how do we do things better. Mm-hmm. So when it came to making a nutrient, we started early on. The sister company of P&W, the house brand, was actually GrowTech. GrowTech Nutrients, which, Steve and his wife separated, and my business partner, Steve, and, GrowTech went that direction. P&W, we had 10 shops at the time. And that's when we started focusing on the retail. And then we looked at what the offering was in the marketplace for nutrients. We said, we can do better. And GrowTech was a house brand, and we sold copious amounts of GrowTech. And one day, due to a dispute between ex-wife and ex-husband, we were cut off of GrowTech.
Oh, wow.
And that was a huge portion of our sales at the time. And we said, okay, let's really, these things came, this forced us to evolve. Like I said, the darkest hours sometimes are the best things that ever happen.
Sure.
Overnight we had to bring a nutrient line out. We looked at actually bringing in GH. We looked at starting up distribution. We said, listen, we need to be independent. We need to be in control of a nutrient line that's in-house, and try to do it better than everybody else. And we have that mentality. We really do. And when your quest is to start making a better nutrient line, it evolves all the time. Because we have that grower first mentality, we're also trying to make something more concentrated, more complete than other products on the market. We've also reverse analyzed every product on the market. We can't sit here and say, we make really high quality nutrients and not put in the work.
100%.
Right? So when you put the work in, when people have better success using their products, they call you up and say, holy shit, come check out my garden. I'm yielding better than I ever have. My inputs are less expensive. And then, you go visit the garden, and all of a sudden, you get a video of it, and that video then goes viral or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden Growing Exposed is born.
Right, which I love that kind of tie together, because that's a big part of, us knowing each other and working through Green Planet, Royal Gold, and distribution of products. But, we've come together through Growing Exposed as knowing some of the same farmers and seeing some of the same things. And I'm always blown away when I go into, people that I really respect's gardens and they're having great success, and I start looking at their product cabinet. And there's always a diverse mix, but there's almost always a Green Planet product. A lot of times it's massive. I see Medi 1 as an ingredient when it's a standalone 1-part medical fertilizer, but I see people using it as an ingredient in these secret recipes. And, that's really inspiring to me to see the way that those products kind of change the way people garden.
Yeah. Well, we, and Growing Exposed, like, literally was, I take great pride in when people use our products. It really makes me feel good, because I believe they perform really, really well. And I think a bunch of our customers do too. So, and then like I was saying, and then Growing Exposed was born, and that was really the brainchild of Jeremy, who was one of my oldest friends. It's funny, right? I have business partners that have been with me, as friends since grade 6. Jeremy I've known since grade 6. All these people that have, David, the garden sage on Growing Exposed, owns the Kootenai market. He's incredible. He has such deep roots in the Kootenays, which is basically the Humboldt of Canada. It's very similar. They have a lot of similar mentalities and synergies. The garden sage is a business partner of mine. He was my first hire.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to hire him. I didn't. And he came back, and he came back again, and I'm like, I can't hire you. You're way too, he was too square for the space.
Interesting.
Right? And he's like, no, I need to work here. This is where I'm going to be. And I was like, and it just became a thing that it was like, okay, forget it. You get a job, done. And, we didn't do interviews. It was just like, go in the corner and clean up, and bang, 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 all day. And I walk back and I'm like, holy crap. This area is the cleanest area of the store I've ever seen. Come back tomorrow, right? And David has really poured his life into this industry.
That's so amazing. And we're going to get back and dig in harder on the Growing Exposed thing. And for those of you that are listening at home, you'll be getting glimpses of this in a different way. This is a really unique episode of Royal Grown Radio, because we're actually co-episoding here with Growing Exposed, kind of showing what we do, showing what they do, and just, talking about the relationships. And that's the interesting thing to me that you were just touching on, is how many of your current partners and, basically your best friends and partners in the business are the people you've had relationships with for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And it gets back to, once again, big up Fat Bull, hustling with integrity. And those people that hustle with integrity tend to find each other and stick with each other.
Totally.
So, like, what evolved the path of, like, all right, so now you started the stores, had success, you're serving this crazy diverse community in Canada, they're producing cannabis to send across the border. I'm sure it was crazy, like scary in some ways, because like it was here, they would follow people home from hydro stores and bust hydro store owners. Like,
all the time. I mean, there's many days I'd be driving home, and it'd be like, I'd be watching the feds following a vehicle, and it was my vehicle, and they were super covert about it. We for the first 15 years of business, I spent more time looking in my rearview mirror than my windshield, right?
Right.
Like they were really crazy times, and they'd come in, they'd try to I got some marijuana, I want to grow some, and it's like, you know what? I'm sorry, I have to stop you there. I cannot support and sell you something for cannabis. I'll tell you what, if you really want to grow, come back and see me tomorrow. and make sure we're talking tomatoes. But today I can't serve you because you've told me what you want to do is illegal. And for that reason, I cannot serve you today. I'm happy to serve you another time, but absolutely, I cannot serve you right now.
And that was a you know, like something that didn't necessarily need to be talked about at a lot of stores. Like you could definitely pick out the people that are totally fresh and new, or the cop.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally, we were looking for cops. You know,
Right.
it was crazy.
Right. Most people, you know, just know better.
Well, I got kicked out of my first hydro store.
Well, sure, so
That's
did I.
for sure.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And what'd you do? Did you go back the next day, like you said?
It took me a week because it was a couple hours away from home, but yes.
Yeah.
And he was glad to serve me and also scold me, and he's, you know, still in the industry. So
Right
I
on.
see him occasionally when we're out in Michigan doing stuff, and I'm like, hey man, you shaped me. Thank you
Yeah.
for teaching me my P's and Q's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those days were like, we were sponges for any information.
But we're also developing all these concepts and recipes, and, you know, Botanic Care was hitting the market, Fox Farm was hitting the market. Those are the things that, you know, were changing us, and you were creating the germs of the idea for Green Planet and evolving. And to me, that's a part of this industry that is disappearing, and we need to tell and capture the stories, because a lot of people currently never experienced what we all did in those times. And I really want to make sure that people start to recognize, and it doesn't get lost in this, you know, scramble towards being the
New
biggest
world.
1,000-acre greenhouse
Yeah.
producer.
Well, that's kind of the genesis of Growing Exposed, right? Is to highlight the culture, the gardens, the people. I mean, you know, it sounds so cliche to say growers are some of the coolest people I know, but they really are.
Absolutely.
And even in the legal scene, because obviously we're a few years into federal legalization in Canada, but you're still a maverick, you're still a bit of a rebel if you've still got 60 acres, or you might have deep roots within the space.
Or
Right?
even if you're brand new, even if you're just a businessman that's getting into
Totally.
the field now that it's legal and you're willing to kind of play that game. I mean, it still says a lot about who you are.
Totally.
You know, because it's not okay everywhere.
It's
and
still a
with-
little
with
taboo,
everybody.
right? But
Pretty much
early
everywhere.
90s, I knew.
Oh, it's taboo as fuck.
Yeah. Oh, it was taboo as fuck. We might as well sell them meth,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
right? But I knew, because my parents were both hippies. We'd go over to Salt Spring Island with my aunt. You know, they'd be blazing, and you know, and I was a little kid. I was, you know, and I knew it wasn't bad. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke cigarettes, because I know and I've seen the damage that those things do to society. Cannabis is not for everyone, but I've seen the medical benefits. It's funny, right? You know, at first we got into it for profit, and then all of a sudden you realize you're able to change people's lives for the positive. This was a chip in a chair for a lot of people I grew up with. This was an opportunity to, you know, we lower middle class is kind of the area I grew up in. And this was an opportunity for them to, you know, potentially buy a house, get out there, work.
Yep.
Sure, shit beat 7-Eleven, and guaranteed that, you know, for most people, there's very little hope, right? So they're forced to do jobs like meter maids and cops and shit that they hate,
Yep.
you know? And I've always said, if you're not elated with your 5-year-old self, if your 5-year-old self can't fucking like be like, I am living a dream, you got to change what you're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you know, we really have become complacent as a society with, well, that pays the bills, I'll just, you know. Fortunately, I found cannabis. Fortunately, it's changed a lot of people's lives around me for the positive. Mm-hmm. Not everybody, but mostly. You know, because even you can't help some people, right? Like some people like get a stack of cash and all of a sudden they go wreck their life.
Well, they were most likely going to do that however they got their stack of cash.
Totally.
You
Now,
know,
on the medicinal tip, I love this concept. It's some, you know, older deadhead on tour, one of my first shows, told me about cannabis. And I'd already been around it for a long time and whatever. And, you know, at this time, late 80s, it really hadn't been called medicine at that point. Really,
Totally.
I at least just hadn't been turned on to anybody using that as medicine. But he explained the concept of it being medicinal as people, as medicine for the human race in general, not a specific person for a specific ailment.
Yeah.
But more, and maybe he was just high on acid and talking out of his ass, but he got my attention, and he broke it down with just the fact that it's a medicine that was provided by the earth to humans to help us adapt to the quick evolution that we're all experiencing. And I love that part.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Like we're growing and
it's true.
changing way too fast when you look at the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
And this was to help us slow down and kind of grow into these massive changes as a species.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Well, listen, plant medicines. We're seeing what's happening with psilocybin now.
Yeah.
We're seeing how it's helping people with depression and mental illness and all these things, right? Like I said, your 5-year-old self has to be really proud of who you are.
I love that. I'm taking that home with me tonight, man. I love that.
Yeah, like I can look myself in the mirror knowing that we've done the right thing, right?
Yep.
I was fortunate enough to also be involved in the coalition against repeal in Canada. A dear friend of ours, Jason Wilcox.
Big respect to Jason.
Rest in peace, Jason. He came to me and he said, listen, I have an opportunity to take the federal government to court, and he gave me an opportunity to put the seed capital up so that we could change the laws in Canada so people could grow medically.
It's awesome.
Right? And fortunately, one, we had the funds and the wherewithal to start it. We got our whole team behind it. Other nutrient manufacturers took credit for it.
Shocker.
Which was really crazy. Like, they didn't get involved at all. But we're talking about big name nutrient manufacturers, big egos and big dick swinging nutrient manufacturers. They were like, we're behind the coal. They didn't put up a penny. They didn't do a damn thing. But we really had an opportunity to be involved. And when you see someone crying because they're gonna have their plants taken away, and they have their own medicine, they have their strain for their own pain, and they're being told that you're gonna have to put it on your street corner with some cat litter and cut it down, and you're done come April 1st, because legalization's coming. You're gonna have to buy your weed through the legal means only. We couldn't sit back and watch that. It was unjust, and we really got behind that as a movement. And today you can grow medically in Canada, and I'm super proud that we had an opportunity to be involved in that. Unfortunately, Jason Wilcox is no longer here, and I think a lot of Canadians have a major debt of gratitude to that guy, because he actually was one of our first hosts on Growing Exposed. If you look back to the first season, he did cannabis in Canada, and just a real maverick, a real trailblazer. And he didn't care. What mattered with Jason, he was very sick, and all that mattered is that he did the right thing and left a fingerprint on the planet saying, I did something good. And I'm grateful for knowing him. And we did something incredible there, knowing that we fought for people to be able to grow medically.
What an amazing accomplishment.
It's amazing, and he left a legacy behind, and it's really interesting. He was one of the first people that your whole team introduced me to the first time I came up to Canada to work with you guys, and I had no idea who he was or the impact he was having at the time, and the work he was doing, and he explained a little bit to me about it, and we all owe him a debt of gratitude. And that's one thing that's a big issue here in the States. As each state goes legal, there are a ton of states that are really clamping down and trying to make medical caregiving illegal still. Mm-hmm. And Washington did it. All sorts of other states are really trying to stop anyone from being able to cultivate cannabis that isn't strictly regulated by the government. And I think that's a horrible mistake. And all you people at home, you hear us talk about this sort of thing on the show all the time. Get involved, please get involved.
Yeah.
take a lesson from Jason Wilcox and follow that passion, fight it, because one person with a powerful heart and a strong voice can make a difference. So like, take that to the streets and fight for that right to cultivate your own medicine, because once that right disappears, it's way harder to get it back than it is to preserve it right now.
Yeah, it actually set a precedence for Canada, because Canada is the first federally legal country for all intents and purposes to go legal. And, you know, and the two systems can coexist. We can have large corporate cannabis. You know, there's a lot of people that hate it, but
It's going to exist.
it's going to exist. And, or you can grow your 4 plants recreationally, or you can grow your plants medically. The three can exist.
Sure.
The difference between cannabis and alcohol, though, you can make your own wine and beer. You can go and buy it from the store, but your wine and beer at home sucks,
Yeah.
right?
So true.
When was the last time you had a home brew that's like, that's delicious? It sucks. The beautiful thing about cannabis is you can get a nice genetic, you can throw it in the ground,
It's true.
put a little bit of effort in, and you can actually grow some really good weed.
A decent
First time
family.
out.
Consistently too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even with brewing, you know, you could get that lucky batch.
Yeah.
But to try to do that again
Yeah.
is really tough. Where, you know, if you get a couple of the basics down, you can actually grow pretty consistent cannabis every time.
Totally.
That's one of the greatest things about being in this industry and working at trade shows is the first time growers coming up. We're doing a trade show in Wisconsin for the traditional garden industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you were saying, plant people are cool people, and the professional growers that are totally new to cannabis were like, I want to try this. Like, I'm in Illinois now, I can grow a couple plants, I want to do this. Like, where do we even start? And I'm like,
Yeah.
get a good bag of soil, get a good simple nutrient setup, and follow the recipes on the bag to start, and you'll have success.
Totally.
And you'll want to do it again. And you'll go down the rabbit hole. You'll start like, oh wait, that is good. I'm gonna try a bloom booster next time. Ooh, I can add a rooting thing, and I'm gonna get bigger roots faster, and my plant's gonna be better structure, and I'm gonna get more buds off the same plant, but better quality. You like, follow that rabbit hole. I think
Totally.
it's great.
It's like golf. You know, you get that one shot and you're like, shit, I want to do that again.
Oh,
I'm coming back
you
again
become
tomorrow.
Honestly, it's an addiction.
It truly is.
Truly is an addiction. I mean, this fires off when you're a young kid and you walk into a grow room for the first time. I can remember the first plants I saw growing under light. We were from BC, it's dark and rainy outside, and you walk into a grow room, it's summer. It's an endless summer, and it's like, then you trim it, you dry it, you sell it for a massive amount of cash. you go buy shit at the store with all this cash, you're like, this is crazy.
I never could have afforded this before.
The 5-year-old inside of you is
Your
raging
5-year-old
right
shit in
now.
his pants. He's like, man, and my dad always said, you know, do anything long enough, you'll eventually get caught. So as a young kid, I knew that there was gonna be an end to this, and I need to transition into making sure I stay in the straight and narrow legal. And that's when we said, let's start retail stores. And we grew stores.
Smart move.
And I was still attached to the growers. I was still attached to the industry, but without the same level of danger, without the same, we were just a bigger target.
You mean people aren't coming to buy nutrients with an Uzi into your retail store?
No, not often, but
It's awesome.
that did happen in the early days.
Oh,
like literally, there were heavy individuals, guys that would walk in the store with cigarette burns all over them, certain ethnicities, and in their culture, those burns meant to kill.
Oh, no way, really?
Yeah,
Whoa.
like really heavy people. So
You're like, can I count those before I decide to do business with you?
I'm telling you, like, and it was just, I'm just selling you fucking lights. I mean, just lax up a bit, but it was a very crazy time.
Well, we heard a lot about this in the States, right? Like, I've heard a little bit from you in the years more recently, but our perception in the States, at least mine in Michigan, was that it was absolutely crazy in BC, that, 5 out of every 20 houses on a block were growing. It was Hell's Angels. It was a whole range of ethnicity gangs going back to their mother countries, and and also these, which is kind of an oxymoron to me because all the Canadians I know are so polite, but like super hardcore thug Canadians, which I've never met one. I'm sure they exist, but
Oh yeah, eh? just they'll go at you. No, listen, hey, the Canadians all super nice, and it was a really interesting time, right? The media loved to get a hold of it and say, this is all gang related. All this cannabis is gang. It was ma and pa. It was, and I can genuinely say that. The media would come in and do interviews with us.
You would know. You're selling them all
Yeah,
this shit.
listen, the media would come in and do some interviews sometimes, and we were really cautious on the questions they were allowed to ask. And they may take one snippet, it'd be an hour-long interview. And, I remember David the Garden Sage, the only snippet that they took out for the news was, how's business? And he literally had this shit-eating grin going on his face going, good. That was all they took for the whole interview, and they were able to be like, this is tied to cannabis and oh, it's gangs. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? We talked about plants. We talked about, not selling to cannabis. We talked about all these different things. We were super cautious on the narrative, and you still managed to pull something out. The media, no different than COVID, no different than everything. We're in an era where information is so relevant and it's so full. Misinformation is through the roof, right?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
If you want to believe a narrative, you're going to find whatever information is to control that narrative. Yeah. And it's really polarizing this time in our lives where we're seeing people segregating each other. And, I don't subscribe to this camp or this camp. Let's just go with like vaccinated, for example, right? You've got the ultra unvaxxers, you're going to die. It's the worst thing ever.
Microchips.
The whole flat earth, the whole 9 yards, right? And you've got the other guy over here. If you're not vaccinated, you deserve to die if you go to the hospital. Like, why the fuck do we have to have these two camps of morons? They're the same people, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
Let's
bring it back to the middle.
Let's be here. Like, there is, in every bit of, good, there's a bit of evil, and every bit of evil, there's a bit of good, yin and yang, right? Why can't there just be, maybe this vaccine isn't the silver bullet we were hoping for.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Because if it was, it would work, and we wouldn't have we wouldn't have to take boosters, not the 15th booster.
Right. Exactly.
For sure.
But most importantly, haven't we learned from our past that let's be fucking nice to each other?
Yes.
The world's overpopulated.
Dealing with anything ununified is just good luck.
Like, people need to stop being cunts to each other.
It's the primary tactic of power is to divide the populace, and it's been that way forever. You get us to focus on our differences, and we forget how we're alike. And we are so much more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
From all walks of life, we all want to eat a good meal with our family. We all want to sleep well at night. We all want a safe, warm bed. And we want to look out for our neighbors. And it's when it gets contextualized as, oh, these guys are preventing you from looking out for your neighbors.
Yeah.
You're pitting people against each other that never were against each other. And that's the thing that bothers me the most.
And both these camps need to smoke a little bit of weed.
A little bit.
And do a little bit of mushrooms.
Mushrooms, I think, will help.
I think will help, honestly. I think every world leader needs to do mushrooms. I think every, and they genuinely just need to calm the fuck down and realize we're more alike than unalike.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if we're going to be able to tell the whole world and the reach of Royal Gold Radio.
We're working on it.
I'm hoping that a lot of people hear this because we need people to come together.
Big time. This is our opportunity to right the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a rough 2+ years for everybody. This is our chance to come together, support your neighbor in their choices.
Yeah.
And recognize their choices may be different than yours and that's okay. But support them and support their right to make their own choice.
Yeah, and back to where this started with misinformation. You know, and that is honestly the only way really that I see getting out of it and getting away from all of us being like this is, you know, it is so easy to see how people can get wrapped up with a belief of the same topic just spun a different way. Just like you were saying with the media up there during the cannabis era, you know. I mean, you can listen to the same coverage from one news, you know, company to the next and see it just delivered in a different way where, you know, you can be sold on both.
Yeah. I've never seen a time in my life where Susie Homemaker is an expert
Everybody
on this
is.
topic. Everybody's an expert.
They all do research
They
all
all
day.
do research, and it's really cool to do research. That's great. We all want to be informed. But I've never seen so many experts.
Right?
On a topic.
That have never read a peer-reviewed study.
It's on a topic.
I remember thinking the internet could be the savior because it would link worldviews, you know, everybody together.
Yeah.
It would be hard to keep the wool over people's eyes because it's just all going to be available. But obviously you can see the other side of that where it's just, you know,
Mass information
too much.
and
Too much info.
mass and misinformation.
Yep.
It's really crazy, and I agree that in a ideological world, wow, the internet could do this. It could align everybody's thoughts.
Yeah.
Where it's
I was waiting for my luggage at the carry-on luggage at the United terminal a couple weeks ago, and they make you wait in the tunnel there. They're going to bring it up the stairs before you go out to the gate. And every single person, I was all the way at the back of the line, and just every person on both sides of the wall, all the way down, every single person is just on their phone. And I'm like, man, that's just what we're doing, you know? 20 years ago, we might have been making friends with the guy talking about the flight we just got off of where we're going next. And yet every single, not one person except for the one kid that was there, literally was like this, heads down, looking up every second for their bag to see if their bag's coming up and going right back to
anti-social
pretty
media.
sad. Even the bar, as you know, like traveling sales guys, you know, they would sit at a bar at a hotel and, you know, you watch a sporting event and get a drink, and man, it's just the days of meeting friends and chatting. There's times I can sit there and I'm like, hey, look at a bunch of salespeople here just sitting at the bar with their phones out. Nobody's
It's
talking.
really a bizarre
Poor
time.
bartenders too. They don't get any of the dirt anymore like they used to get.
Yeah.
Sad.
It's a very different world, and I think that that's another important thing that cannabis really facilitates is connection among humans. And, you know, in this time of COVID, it's harder because we're not sharing cannabis among people like you used to. And, you know, it's more widely available, so you don't have to, like, share, like, when it used to be, you smell the joint, you're like, hey, man, you mind if I get a puff off that? You know, and, or if you were
Blisters all over their lips, and you're like, I gotta take my
maybe
chances.
not.
I'm gonna go with it.
Shit smells real good.
But it brings people together, and it gives them a
Totally.
commonality that breaks the differences. You can be different in every walk of life, but you smoke cannabis and the walls
You're
just
on the same team
fall
all of a
away.
sudden. Yeah, and that's what I really hope for Growing Exposed. I never thought that it would have the traction. It was never about let's get as many followers or, you know, it was just let's tell real stories about the industry and get excited about what we do. And I've never actually, this is funny, right? No one's ever asked me, where did I come from? What did I do?
And
right? I'm always asking the questions.
that's why this was such an exciting interview for me, because we've been friends for a long time and I haven't had an opportunity. Like, we're always doing business and at trade shows and having a great time and learning about each other, but not in this way. And so I'm very thankful to get to share this with people because it's true curiosity of mine. And I'm really excited to take a break in a few minutes. We're going to get Jeremy on here, who's one of the creators of Growing Exposed, the cameraman.
He is Growing Exposed.
The brain, the heart, the existence. And, you know, linking with you guys and having the opportunity to come along and watch you shoot some of the very first episodes and help participate a little bit, it really changed my perspective in seeing your passion and seeing Jeremy's passion for bringing it in an approachable way. Is a big part of what we're doing here at Royal Grown Radio. It's like, let's tell these stories. This is something that's meaningful and needs to happen now before the industry leaves the stories behind.
Yeah. It's funny, right? Like in an industry that you would think of as all inclusive, right? There's a lot of cunts that run their own channels, and they've got a lot of followers, and they're very inclusive, right? They're very they hold on to their information, they hold on to their channels, they don't want to collaborate. And when anybody ever comes to us, we've always been like, yeah, let's do that together. I'm not thinking about, how is this going to benefit me, or would my following be affected and pour over to you guys, or any of that garbage. It's all, our industry should be together.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people that we've tried to open up to, big names in the space, that are like, no, I have 400,000 followers on my channel, and that's gonna benefit you more than me, and my nutrient line won't succeed as much because people are gonna start buying your product potentially, and all this. It's just garbage. Yep. Twister Trimmer just did a segment with us. Great BC brand, been around forever, and they just started a thing called Behind the Harvest, and they're like, hey, we're starting a show about growing cannabis, and they asked us, do you want to be involved? I'm like, hell yeah.
Of course.
Why not? Why can't we all be on the same team and all elevate our game? We are genuinely fighting the same fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
On the same team.
I get excited about bringing them up. And Jeremy and I have always been a believer that there's enough pie to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
And, we want people to get excited about growing. We want to show the biggest, craziest gardens. We want to show the tech behind the industry. We want to show all these things, because that's what drives me. That's what gets me excited.
Yeah, for sure.
If there's a tidbit that every grow is different. If there's a tidbit I can take from a garden, I want to share that with all the growers to be like, this might benefit you. Like I said, we're grower first.
Yep.
Right? If there's something somebody's doing in this space that's getting them 3.5 pounds of light, what is it? What is that technique? We want to know, so that we can share that, so that others can go out and do that. So others can, on their channels, say, hey, I learned this from this guy, or I did this. It's really, but unfortunately, I don't know if it's a human nature thing, but some people are,
Selfish and competitive.
selfish and competitive.
They're just closed.
Me. Mm-hmm. Like, why?
Totally.
Like, I am a bit of a rare duck within the industry. I'm a retailer, a manufacturer, a wholesaler, a media company,
A documentarian.
a documentarian, or whatever you want to call it. I've worn a lot of hats and done a lot of things in this space, and I don't want to sit here and be like ego, but I've just done a lot. I've got 30 years just about in this industry. If I haven't done a lot, or I haven't shown some level of success, then I had to screw up royally.
Yeah.
I love Dennis Hunter, what he said. I asked him, why are you shooting for the stars and doing all these things? And he said, I could live 100 lifetimes and not have the opportunity that's available to me.
Yeah.
Right?
He's said similar things to me too. He's like, I can't help it.
Yeah.
I feel utterly compelled, and I cannot stop until this battle is won.
Yeah.
And those are the freedom fighters that we all need to tip our hats to and channel just a little bit in our day to day.
He's a rad dude.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I've sat down and had heard some of his stories, and I'm like, holy crap.
Well, by the time this episode airs, we'll have an episode aired with Dennis telling some of the most crazy, outlandish, unbelievable, yet 100% true stories
Yeah.
of the emergence of cannabis in Humboldt really exploding and going from mom and pop small grows to full on cultivation and Prop 215 and really the emergence of the industry that we see now. And wow, there are some doozies.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that we can come in here with some preconceived ideas of what we may talk about or want to talk about.
Yeah.
And hanging out with Dennis was definitely one of those where it just everything. No, we didn't touch on one of the things that we wanted to talk about.
He's
It was
mind-blowing.
all new and all mind blowing. And it was probably the quietest you'll ever hear Micheal and I on our own podcast. We literally scrape our jaws off the floor when we were done.
Yeah. That guy's got deep roots here.
And
Big time.
in the car on the way out of there, I'm like, all right, so here's our question list. Didn't ask that one, didn't ask that one, didn't ask that one, didn't ask that one. We may as well not even have written questions.
Yeah. It was the Dennis Hunter show.
What was even better is that as we were leaving, he was just like, so we're going to need at least 2 more of these, right?
Hilarious, right?
Yeah, we got up to like just about when he was getting ready to start Geopods.
That's hilarious.
Right? Yeah. So a lot more to go. Speaking of a lot more to go, I think we're going to take a couple minutes, chat. We're going to get Jeremy out from behind the camera and over here to join us and tell some of the story about how Growing Exposed came to be what it is, how it developed from just a little bit of an idea to where we all sit today. And thanks for listening. You can check us out at royalgrownradio.com on all of your major podcast platforms. You can find us on YouTube. You can find Growing Exposed on their channel at YouTube, growingexposed.com. If you like it, click on, subscribe, take a minute and listen to the other episodes. There's something here for everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. This is Justin from Green Planet and Growing Exposed. You're listening to Royal Grown Radio. Feel free to check me out on my Instagram. It's Grow Green Planet, and thanks for listening.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Royal Grown Radio. We're having a really incredible conversation with Justin Cooper of Green Planet and Growing Exposed. We just had the honor of bringing Jeremy Deichen into the interview. The inception, the brain, the kind of heart behind the scenes at Growing Exposed, the cameraman, man capturing what you see at home, and those experiences that you have when you're watching Growing Exposed that you feel like you could just reach out and touch that flower or feel the leaves against your face as you walk through those rows. That's Jeremy coming at you. So welcome, Royal Grown Radio. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Micheal.
Yeah. So gentlemen, you guys have known each other for a long time. Obviously, you can tell by the way you interact on the scene, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like that relationship, I think, is a big part of what's contagious about Growing Exposed and the excitement. Tell us about how you guys came to know each other and how we all ended up here now.
I mean, we started in grade 6 having a fight.
Yeah, we were little kids, and we were in the same class. I think not just 6th grade, but like 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. There was a bunch of grades.
Yeah.
And we were all right next to each other, and me and Justin were both definitely, even at a young age, we're sort of, I guess, alpha. And but at some point, yeah, we fought out back, and I do remember it. Like I remember a little bit. He has a little bit of different story, but it's funny his almost his version, because his was, I think, something to do with after we both got into a fight, the principal asked him to go in and said, yeah. What did he say?
Well, it was really funny, right? Like, cause I didn't get in a lot of fights, but I won this fight, right? I was obvious. I was a clear winner of the fight.
I don't believe that at all.
He's forgetting stuff because it was, I really threw it in.
The drama.
He's missed parts of it. So no, but we both got thrown in the principal's office, and he asked a whole bunch of questions like, why, what, when. We got the spotlights on us, like we're being, and we just both shut up. I automatically had a lot of respect for him, and he had a lot of respect, I think, for me, maybe, because we didn't give the principal anything. Yeah. We grew up in Surrey, and we knew it's called Switchblade City. We knew to keep our mouths shut around the cops, and at a very young age, we knew the rules of engagement.
Yes.
But I think also, like, Justin had 2 older brothers, and he was used to getting into fights. And no, seriously.
It's
And
true.
I remember the first time when exactly that, because I wasn't maybe the biggest kid, but I was extremely athletic.
Yeah.
And I
You
was
were a
very
wrestler,
strong.
right?
I did wrestling. I've done it. I've done a lot of sports.
Yeah.
And it was, which is very funny because now everything I do has nothing to do with athletics. But I did do a lot when I was younger. But I just remember the big thing of just Justin fighting back, and just he has that in him. You can see now how it is. Maybe when he's a kid, you might not have been able to see that. But now I look back.
I was small.
And I think we both were.
Yeah.
I mean, but we were tough. And the funny thing is I think right then, because I think we really, ever since then, that moment, we've always been aligned, and it's like, it's one of those things where you realize this is a person who will be much better as an ally than ever as an enemy, and the more I know about Justin now, I wouldn't want to be his enemy, right? Because he's a competitor, right?
Yeah.
He's a competitor, and it's funny that, me being on camera right now, it's not normal. Like, I've had a few interviews in my entire life, and I've been doing this for 25 years of filming. And I remember when I first said to Justin, we need to start making some videos. This was way before Growing Exposed even. And him just trying to talk, and he can talk about nutrients and, wholesale and retail, and he can talk about all the stuff, throw a camera in his face, and it was a very different animal. It was like a human being right? But this is the type of human being that Justin is, where he says, I'm gonna take this on as a challenge, and I'm gonna figure this out, and we're gonna keep doing this until I get better. And there was at no time was he ever excited about going on camera. At no time. I think now he's a million times better. Even I was looking at some of the stuff, we do this series called Growing Green, where he's growing, he's gonna be growing in his own place, and he's basically building it, and we're doing it all. And just watching him work, he's more comfortable when he's just doing it and just being himself. And I'm starting to see even him, the real him, in it more. And the more he gets comfortable, and the longer we do this, I think that's going to be and that was the interesting thing. That just wasn't him. He wasn't comfortable on camera, and that's how he is. He says, I'm going to take something on that I'm not comfortable with. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. You remember?
Yeah,
We could show some old videos.
I think I was
Cue the
horrible.
B-roll.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I think I was horrible at the beginning. Like, I
You were.
was
You were horrible.
shit.
yeah.
I was impressed at the beginning because I had known you for a few years before this, and like mutual respect, and that's something I noticed too, Jeremy, is you could talk about anything. And that was, a lot of people in the hydro industry are very focused in a category, and you had just such a breadth, and that always impressed me. And I was like, I can see him doing that, hosting a show, this and that. And then I saw it, and I was like, is that Justin? Because you weren't just like flowing out of you like you are in some of the new episodes. I feel like,
But I mean,
I struggled with it too.
we were black market. We were taught to play low key.
100%.
We didn't talk about cannabis on a TV show. Are you kidding me?
Totally.
This was super bizarre.
Yep.
So, once again, we're forced to evolve. And, to be a voice of an industry, like, there's nobody doing this. Like, you've got Remo, who is a nutrient manufacturer, but he was doing this before he became a nutrient manufacturer.
He was a personality.
He was a personality,
And
right?
Justin, you might look at it as a certain thing of thinking that's similar to what we're doing. I don't even think it's the same animal.
Oh, it's not the same animal at all. But
because this is what I was trying to get away from, is people in their own garden talking about their own experiences when we were going to go out as a independent person and saying, what is somebody else doing? Whereas that person is, I don't really watch a lot of other people's stuff, but from what I can tell is he's in his own garden. Just like anybody, you see, there's a million of those YouTube channels, right? The difference is we're popping into places that no one has ever seen before. These are not YouTube personalities. You would never have a look inside of this particular garden unless we shot something there. That Lost Coast episode, they don't have, Aaron's not doing a YouTube channel running out of that.
No.
And that's the whole thing is it's like, and then one of the things we also wanted to do is be a voice of the industry. And like I said, we kind of back it up a little bit to like, you know, it evolved. Remember, like we could tell the story of what it is now, 7 years later or whatever the hell it is. But he touched on it earlier in that first part. It was as simple as we created a video with John Burfello, and it was about talking about his experience with Medi-1. And the reason it was going under growing exposed is because as a nutrient manufacturer, as Green Planet, which I was doing marketing for them, I was creating the videos for him and then also a lot of the other brands that he was carrying. You just couldn't do it because as soon as he goes to the border, they say, you're now involved, your company is now pushing cannabis content, cannabis related stuff, and you know how it goes, that's it.
Yeah.
No more going to Hawaii, no more going to Disneyland with your kids, no more going to MJ Biz, no more going to your life. It's just like that, right?
Wow.
And so then I came up with the idea of this alter ego in a sense that's growing exposed. I mean, I was literally, it was a Saturday night. I spent that night, it's always hard finding a short domain name. Something, you know, I'm always trying to come up with these clever things of like, what can I come up with that, you know, I can create. And when I come up with these ones and it's like not taken, I'm like, growing exposed. Oh my God. I remember just going, this is beautiful. And I still to this day love it. I love that name and I love everything about it. And it's, but it was a real simple idea. And the funny thing is I do digital marketing, not just for cannabis industry, but tons of other companies. And I was taking these internet mastermind classes and they were telling me, you have to do the right tags. You have to do these long descriptions. You have to, you know, create these annotations. You have to have an amazing thumbnail. You have to do all these things that you have to do, post on a regular basis. I throw the one video up and I look back like 30 days later, just forget about it. I literally just forget about it. And it's got 30,000 views or something. I think it had 8,000 and I looked again another month and it was like 30,000. And I know how hard I had worked at a lot of these other videos, like, let's show you how to make a 3-part video, or let's interview Micheal at the, you know, I used to walk around with the camera at the trade shows and we would get all these things. The problem is no one gives a shit about somebody at a trade show. That is proven. And what I can show over and over and over and over and over again, after I've tried all these, like I said, I do lots of videos. It's all I do. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been working really hard for 10 years. Is people care about the content. We've all heard this, well, maybe we haven't all, but content is king. We've heard that saying. It's so true. And I can prove it over and over again. It does not, nothing will trump good content. And so then my thought was, okay, if this works, then what if we did this and this and this? And then that's when I pulled together basically all my friends to help out. Amanda, the host, she's just a friend of mine that we know for a million years.
Wow.
She came from Spike TV. Like,
yeah, she was in Spike TV.
She was friends of ours first.
Yeah,
so her wife.
Her husband was my original business partner in Loaded Gun Productions. Loaded Gun Productions, which now is called LG. We just got rid of the gun and the loaded. But that was me following around drunk people for 10 years. I had a series called Drunk in Public.
Oh, wow.
It was the first Jackass.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
awesome.
It was absolutely crazy.
I can't wait to get some links from that.
Oh, you don't want it.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's just
it's
crazy.
hardcore. Yeah, a series that I followed around for like 10 years. And like I said, that's an absolutely insane video series, and you need a whole episode just on that, or multiple ones. But ultimately, it's funny because now I do all cannabis related stuff, and boy, is it different.
I mean, and he hit on me evolving and getting better at what I do.
Yeah.
And he's done the exact same. Like a guy that literally, you know, he's been doing videography and all those things, but he's super creative. And when he and I get together in the van and do these road trips, it's something I really look forward to, because it you know, we just sit there and geek out on, oh, we should do this, or we should do that, or we should do this, we should do that. It's just, and it's a really fun time. It's a really unique experience. And it's an honor to be able to actually highlight the industry and the creative people in it. And, you know, he's really stepped up. Like every single time, his next idea is just better than the last time we were out.
Well, I predict this show will be on one of these big networks in probably the next 3 years. I've got 1 year of some stuff that I've got to chew through, and then the following year, which will be a year from now, I think will be on par with anything that you have ever seen that you're amazed by. And I've been working very hard behind the scenes on just the storytelling aspect, getting better, and understanding the format that we need to do. And I think that like Justin's done a lot of nice things for me. And, you know, even just driving down in a nice, you know, growing exposed vehicle, you know, you feel like you live in the luxury, right?
Yeah.
And I always think, what could I do to return the favor, you know? Seriously, what could I do to return? And honestly, the biggest thing I think I can do is use my talents to create something amazing. And living life to its full potential is extremely important to me at this point in my life. You know, we talked about getting older, and I look back at my, let's call it 30 to 40. And I was not living life to its full potential. I was allowing cannabis to fund my life, and I sure had a lot of fun. I sure had a lot of fun.
And I can speak to this. There's very few people that have had the opportunities, like being young and having a stack of money is euphoric, and it's crazy in itself. And I mean, a lot of people can relate to that, or some people can. But he did that on steroids. I'm not kidding. When you saw a limo pull up anywhere, and it was Jeremy, it was very similar to, oh God, I mean, we've seen it time and time again by certain big personalities that were in it for the limelight and everything else. No, it was just Jeremy having the time of his life, you know, and just 10 blondes would show up with him everywhere he went. It was very surreal. Like, he lived a very interesting life, if I can say that. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
I went out with him a few times. It's like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, you know, the bar had its own Jeremy section. You know, not a little bit. Literally, his company, his logo, and him and a crew of people.
I think it was a stripper pole right in the
Stripper
middle that
pole
we
in the
built.
middle of, like, just
You know, I had my own stall. I had my name on it.
Yeah.
Because that was important to me at that time.
He'd have parties he'd rent out the whole nightclub, and there'd be, you know, small people doing backflips on motorbikes, and you know, just if you could think it, he was doing it. There was like literally bars rented out, and there'd be, you know, oil wrestling and girls punching each other out, and it just madness. Like, it's crazy that you can't get away with half the
You'd
things.
never be able to do what we did back then, never be able to do it today.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. I've known you for a decade plus now and heard like tiny tidbits of stories, but this is mind blowing for the like humble, focused, go get 'em, like one of the most driven people in the industry that I know. I mean, the both of you, that's one of the things that makes you so magnetic as personalities within the industry, is that like you're driven.
Yeah.
And you fight for it. Like, I never would have pictured that. And that's why this is so exciting.
He was a circus trainer. He was a circus trainer for 10 years.
So
Like,
think
crazy.
about how hard I put focus into my work and my video stuff. Think about if I put that into, let's have a big fucking party. What if I put that focus? Like I said, it was an incredible decade, and it was at a time when you could do that. I don't feel like even what I did now, you just would never. Yeah, you'd never be able to do what happened.
Like, I would have you know, Halloween parties or whatever it is, and Jeremy would show up with all these girls, and my ex-girlfriend would be like, "Who are all these bitches?" You know, just like, and this just this it was the Jeremy show for many years, And that was very fueled by the BC market.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's just-
Exactly. And that's what happens when you are able to make a bunch of money and have a bunch of time.
Yeah.
And
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, exactly.
Well, money flowed like rain around BC, bud, for a good long time.
Yeah.
All over North America. I mean, it was incredible. I watched people become, 5-minute millionaires from BC, bud, all over the Midwest and, across the East Coast. These guys would be out, on fish tour, 6 deep in a car with 3 dogs, and then 6 months later they're driving Mercedes and loaded down and
Yeah.
making money fast.
So there was a lot of hatred. Like there was a lot of haters in that time, oh, they're not paying taxes, or they're not doing this, or they're not doing. Listen, that era fueled the economy.
Oh, in a huge way.
People bought trucks. Growers are not the most savvy savers. Some of them did some incredible things. They opened businesses, and it was that chip in a chair, right?
Yeah.
And some of them just destroyed themselves. And it's so funny, right? Like I said earlier, this was an opportunity for people getting an out, people succeeding in the world. This, the game of life is so geared against the average person. After they've worked 40 hours a week at the gas station, taking their, $1,000 a month, how does that guy ever get a chance? Well, he could have bought a light.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Back then, you could have bought a light, still can, and we've seen it, we've highlighted and destigmatized this industry, right? That is one of the major focuses, to destigmatize and bring these people that genuinely are relevant, that have been hiding for all these years, that have been fueling the economy. They've played their part,
Yeah.
and now they're transitioning to legal farms, which is fantastic. They always wanted to pay taxes,
And
prohibition.
some did in
Yeah.
creative ways and crazy taxes.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways because there were no write-offs and
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was an economy that was looked at and frowned upon by a whole plethora of people, but that economy was real. It was important, and it kept a lot of areas alive, Humboldt included.
It always blows my mind of like the fact that I was filming these things for 10 years, this drunk in public, all to do with alcohol, and then now just for almost 10 years been doing weed. And to see the difference between, go to these 420 events with all these people on weed and then all these people on alcohol. You go to just a sporting event and you see somebody getting punched out, something happened, there's some sort of violence. We know how many times,
Holy crap.
right? But
Every time.
But never once at any of these high time events, never once have I ever seen any issue, ever. And isn't that incredible?
There was that one max yield in Michigan.
Well, I have never seen it. But isn't that
listen,
incredible?
But hold on, early days. I mean, even one of the first trade shows I went to Australia, and there was a stabbing right in front of me. I'm like, because it was so black market. With legalization,
Right.
we take the black market out of it,
Yep.
right? And the war on drugs is over. Drugs won.
Big time.
Am I wrong? Like all that did is, prohibition pushed lights indoors. Prohibition created really strong black markets. I mean, you're seeing it for all drugs. And quite frankly, we need money put into education, especially with the opioid crisis right now, right? Like if we're really getting into drugs, no one's going to stop doing drugs.
No.
Let's educate them, standardize them. I mean, look at edibles today. I know I can take 10 milligrams or 20 milligrams, and I know exactly what I'm going to get. We're able to standardize it. These are so important, and we need that available for all people. We need to start talking about drugs as a therapy, drugs as a recreation. People use alcohol, which is, in my opinion, the worst drug and has destroyed so many people's lives.
So many.
Like, you can't say that for cannabis.
Yeah, definitely not.
For the most part, I mean, there's a couple people that,
Only because they
couldn't
put you
help
in
law
prison for
enforcement.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, you're in prison for it. But genuinely, how many people do you know that are like, I'm a stoner and I've wrecked my life?
Totally.
It's not common. And the other thing that I think the war on drugs did was kind of a role reversal by leveling the playing field by grouping all of these drugs together. So when people did eventually try cannabis and they're like, well, this isn't so bad. It wasn't a gateway drug that it like made you want to try other drugs, but it made you question what you'd been taught. And if cannabis isn't bad, then is all this stuff bad? Well, a lot of that stuff is really super duper terrible and should never have been lumped in with things that have actual medical benefit.
Totally.
People are going to be like, wow, you've been lying to me about this completely. Now I want to see if you're lying about these other things.
It's an exit drug. It gets people off opioids.
100%.
It helps people with the transitioning off hardcore drugs.
Yep.
But Purdue can put their heads up high and be like, hey, we're just selling OxyContin. You're killing people's lives.
Totally.
You're an opioid dealer, and they're making doctors who are educated the ones that are dealing that shit.
Yeah. And
Like, when are people going to wake the fuck up?
And that ties into something that we ran into today, which, the guys from Cannadips and other similar products that are displacing the nicotine market with CBD products. It's a dip product that isn't going to have all of those super crazy toxic effects. And, this is just a local company doing a local medicine type product.
And it's delicious.
And changing people's lives. And, I'm not a dipper, but I tried one just to see, and I was like, wow, that's actually kind of cool.
It's pretty cool, right?
And they use cocoa fiber, like we use cocoa fiber. So
And it gets people off the number one drug that the governments profit from. Cigarettes and tobacco are the number one killer. It kills all people, more than all drugs combined. Cigarettes are
nicotine kills everything.
It's horrible. But once again, I said this. When you're selling cigarettes and you're those people in the cigarette companies, how does your 5-year-old self feel about you? You're a cunt. You know it. You're just happy living fat on the land and knowingly hurting people. Alcohol, same thing.
Yep.
Right?
But it also comes down to free choice in this world, and that's what we've decided. I drove by the
Make your choice.
skydivers 2 weeks ago, and I looked up and I thought, what the fuck are these guys thinking? Jumping out of a plane is a good idea. Like,
Yeah, that was Aaron from Rainmaker, probably.
yeah, and I'm like, that's not a good idea. And then I went to the Reno Air Races last weekend with for Method 7. They got a pilot line, and I'm like, these guys are fucking nuts. And you look back and 10 years ago to this, it's been a decade. They had this memorial thing. This guy took a plane. Something happened. The back end broke or something. Flies straight up, straight down in the crowd, and kills 10 people. And so these are onlookers. But they're saying because insurance purposes it gets more difficult. And I thought, that's the sad part about this thing is like, and you guys were touching about it earlier, it's just, life should just be about free choice. If it doesn't hurt anybody else, then just let people fucking do it. And the whole 5-year-old self thing, coming back to the growing exposed thing, I know from seeing what I filmed with this, with the drunken public stuff, which, like I said, if people want to Google my name, they'll see there's a negligence causing death thing that happened with me. It ended not well. But the reality of it is, with this growing exposed, is I know for a fact, I've seen it my entire life, that this plant is wonderful for a lot of people. And it's not a bad thing. And how many times, even now, we've been legal in Canada for a couple of years, Washington for, 6, 7 years. Come on, guys. Everybody knows. Anybody who's probably watching this show already knows. We don't need to convince them. But the world should know by now that it's not that bad. The van outside, the big pot leaf on the side, I crossed the border. Now I'm in a different situation because I'm a U.S. citizen. So I can come down. That's why I'm always the mule, because they can't not let me in.
Because you're a citizen.
Yeah, but I have this big pot leaf on the side of the RV, and never, like 3-4 years ago, would that have been okay. And it is changing slowly, but I really love the fact that I know with all the millions of people that have watched the show, that we are affecting and we're showing that these are real human beings. That guy Aaron that you met down there, you know, we got a chance to meet him, and that's what you do. You really meet these people that you would never meet before, and you're like, oh, they're not Hell's Angels. These are actually just people that enjoy this. And so I think that we have to keep telling those stories, and that's why I believe that, like I said, we're going to be one of the hottest shows and the hottest topics, period. Because number one, this hasn't gone federally legal yet.
And it's coming.
It's coming, and there's going to be a lot of people looking at these stories and wondering how this is going to play out in the U.S. And we already know how it's going to play out. It's going to be just fine. And they're going to need some content, and it needs to be done in a different way. Even I'm not growing exposed is going to evolve. It's not going to be the same show that it was today as it is going to be in 2 years. And I know I have a vision already for where it's going. And trust me, it will be on there. You will see it there. As long as I'm alive, if I tell you it's going to happen, and I know, like I said, when I'd hold back to the fight thing, when we're aligned, and I know, like I said, if Justin buys into it, he's going to work hard at what he's doing. I'm going to work very hard at what I'm doing. And honestly, we're
committed.
We're just starting. This, to me, is just the tip of the iceberg to where we are now.
Yeah.
I love it, and I like that you're taking it to the people, and you know, being lucky enough to have gone to a few visits and a few farms with you and meet the people and just watch the way you guys interact. It's like, it makes people feel at home and want to tell their story and want to like take people there. And when you say content is king, it's like, yeah, that content is king, but it's like, it's because it resonates. It's because everybody can see a little bit of piece of themselves in the struggle that other people have gone through. So many people from so many diverse walks of life all end up in this same industry and this seeing eye to eye in so many different ways that we weren't raised to see eye to eye in those ways. Perhaps we were raised in different places, different backgrounds, but we've all evolved with the plant to elevate this industry together. And I think it's really amazing what you guys have done with this platform to take that story to the people. And that's why it's been so much fun for me to have you guys here on Royal Grown Radio here in Humboldt, because like I didn't know any, like I've known you guys for a long time. I knew you were grade school buddies. That was a great trip down memory lane and like a little glimpse into that magic. But it's so good to have you guys here to make more magic together. Like, so we're going to be here for the next week. We're going to cruise around. You at home, you'll see a ton of new content coming out of these guys, coming out of us, from, you know, new farm visits, new friends and old friends alike. Like, tell us what gravitates you guys to Humboldt, because I know you guys have been like associated for a long time, and quality cannabis brings people here, but you guys have really connected with Humboldt. Like, tell us some of the stories about what's brought you here and some of your experiences.
Honestly, Michael, it was big time you. Like, no, you were one big part of that. I would have to literally go back in my memory banks, but like I've always like, even I like Rick, always seen, he's always got that smile at the trade shows. We meet a lot of different people, but I remember, don't you remember what were the first couple times we came? And like, it wasn't planned. Like, it was just, hey, I'm coming here. And like, you just took time out of your week and you said, let's go see this guy. Let's go see this guy. Let's go see this guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, it's the mecca in the U.S. here. And just like we do a lot of stuff in the Kootenays, because it just makes sense. It's like if you're going to make a Hollywood movie, but do it in San Antonio, or, you know, do some fashion thing, but, you know.
This is the mecca.
It's like if you're going to do a tech thing, you go to Silicon Valley. Like, so if we're going to do a show about cannabis, it's crazy not to do that. But of course, we are going to branch out. We have done a lot of other stuff. But you can't not. I mean, it's the mecca. And so we know fashion comes from New York. We know, a lot of stuff that comes from LA, right? A lot of the Hollywood style type of stuff. Cannabis comes from here. So it's a show about cannabis. And I think one of the biggest things where I have to make a shift in the some people may like it or not like it, is that it's a very industry driven series. right? And so if you were to watch the show now, let's be honest, you'll see a lot of industry type style stuff. And I just think that as it evolves, it's going to be, every human being is going to be able to relate to these people. And when you relate with other people, you can have empathy for them and love for them. And so you won't hate someone that does cannabis or smokes cannabis or grows cannabis. You will think of them as a different human being. And
This is coming from a non-cannabis user too, by the way. He doesn't consume.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
I don't consume anything, actually.
yeah, he's
I drink green tea.
yeah.
Yeah.
herb mate junkie.
Yeah. But Jägermeister used to be my, used to be what I love.
His poison.
That was
one,
the poison.
one other thing I will say though too is, Michael, I remember when you called me up one day, I can't remember why, you were just basically, you were saying something like, I love you, man. And I was like, I love you too. Me and Justin tell each other we love each other. You know, when I have this interest in stories, when we go to meet these people tomorrow, or when I'm asking these questions.
Because we're gay.
It's,
We just came out
it's because
on Royal Gold.
it's because I actually love this stuff. Like I truly, I get off on it. I love this stuff. It's so interesting to me to learn about what other people are doing. When I go home, because I absolutely love my family, and I miss them when I'm away from the thing, but I get so much out of it. I get so amped, I was so pumped to come down here and to do this. And like Jason, our other cinematographer, is going to be, hopefully, if he didn't miss his flight, he's going to be coming. I'm going to be talking his ear off until 1 o'clock about camera gear. And
Straight. This is
I
collaboration at its
love
finest.
this stuff. And you can't, and that's the thing is like, I have a major drive for this stuff. And and it just keeps getting more. Like the more, it's like the fuel keeps getting put on the fire. And as I see people watching the series, it makes me so excited to see that it's making a difference. When we went to Toronto, Vancouver, and then we went to Denver, and then the fucking pandemic hit. You should have seen people who knew who the hell he was. What happened today when we were walking down Humboldt? The
was
guy walks
amazing.
up and says, "Hey man, I know who you guys are," and gave him some Canada dips and all that stuff. That fuels my fire, that we're making a difference, that people are watching. I mean, I can see the numbers. I can see the views. I can see all that. That excites me to say, what's next? What's next? If this is working, what if I put more into it? And trust me, we're not, believe it or not,
We're still in first gear.
we're not even putting much. Justin has a zillion businesses. I got a lot going on. Like, honestly, we're not doing as much as you would think compared to what we could do.
But we have we have great lives back home. We have great family. We have great connections. And it's a sacrifice taking a week off to go do this. It's a sacrifice. It genuinely is. But
It truly is.
But
We know it.
It's done out of passion. I mean, you guys travel around the country, same thing, right? You don't do
We
it.
have families and
Yeah.
kids that miss us.
And it's you know,
yeah.
and fortunately we have a strong foundation back home that keeps it all together. And you know, I've got great business partners that are, you know, manning the ship. So this is just us doing different things to find, you know, other ways of marketing the company and marketing what we do. And some people give us shit being like, well, that was just marketing, you know? Well, somebody's got to pay for the show too. This thing, it's not inexpensive to set up.
Exactly.
No, it
We don't
very-
this content's not free.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
Flying, hotels,
Editors, the
sound. It just
the
goes
equipment,
on.
that
It's-
Software.
we have
that
we have
camera's $30,000.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
it's a big animal, right?
Yeah.
So these things don't just happen. So when you see an ad for Method 7 or Royal Gold, it's there because they're supporting the show and they're taking a bit of the cost off of.
So I saw James from Method 7 last
Yeah.
weekend, and I hadn't seen him in 2 years because of the pandemic. All I said to him, I just said, back to the love. You know, I got a lot of love these days, but I said, I really love the fact that you support my habit of filming. I love filming. I love it. And thank you so much. And that's what I say to anybody who sponsors, supports us, and does whatever. But at the end of the day, even if it was money, it's like somebody paid me to be somewhere. honestly, I don't go somewhere I don't want to be. And Justin, I can promise you, does not need to be here, and he is never driven by the financial aspect of it. It is for sure about his love for the plant. And that's why he's going to blow away any host that maybe knew how to talk on camera prior to, is because he knows this business better than anybody. I would put him up against anyone that I've ever met in my life in cannabis, and that's the reason why, is because no one knows the retail side of the aspect, because he's built the retail side. Nobody has had manufacturing and understands that. Well, then there's the distribution side, where you come in and you've got to manage, you've got 50 different brands. Then you've got the marketing side, just owning a company of, I think there's like 50, 60 people. I don't know, we have these Christmas parties, there's 100 people there. That, building that business, understanding the accountant. I've seen this guy where you put 10 invoices out on a piece of paper, right? I've seen him just signing checks, quick, and all of a sudden I see this. And the same thing with the invoices, he'll just quick, and just, he's sharp as a tack. He's got that accountant in him too. You know what I mean? And to be able to do all those different things, and then to be able to be the grower too. When we walk in,
I don't even understand how I do this shit anymore.
And we go into Dennis.
It's not normal.
Justin,
honestly.
think about that. When you go in to talk to Dennis,
It's not normal.
and you're
Sorry,
like talking
that's the
about, and someone's talking about extraction that just fucking goes over my head, and he's able to have these conversations with them. All of a sudden, we'll talk to somebody about psilocybin and mushrooms, and he's able to understand the process. Like, that's what he geeks out at. You know?
I've been studying, and you know, I don't, thank you.
You can't figure out how to open an email, but you know what? You understand? At some point,
Those are hard.
At some point, it's full.
Something's got to give.
At some point, it's full. But
Right.
I'm telling you, you name somebody in the industry that has that experience in 30 years, who understands not just the cultivation side, the design aspect, do you understand the chemical part, the what the hell?
The composition of nutrients and
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then he can talk soil with you guys. When you geek out, he can go there. And I'm telling you, he doesn't.
Microbiology, all of it.
Exactly.
Listen, you hit on it earlier. You hit on regenerative farms, right?
Yeah.
Does me as a nutrient manufacturer benefit from regenerative farming? Absolutely not. They're not buying salt-based nutrients. They're not buying organics inputs.
No.
They're growing their own soil with their own natural bacteria. They're doing it, and we just featured a regenerative garden in Nelson, British Columbia. Not because I'm going to profit from it, not because he's using Green Planet, because it's another angle in the industry. We want to be the voice of the industry, everybody.
And
Absolutely.
it's that sustainability. It's like part of
It's
one thing I've learned
Totally.
through being in the cannabis world that I didn't know before, that's helped me try and do things that are positive for our environment and my everyday life. And
I think it's great. And not only all of that, but I walk the walk. I live on solar power. I grow our own food, and I've got a huge garden, all organic, in non-synthetic nutrients, cultivating and growing soil and making my own tea and doing all those things. That's not bullshit. I'm not doing that so that the viewers can be like, oh, that guy actually does that too. I don't give a shit. I believe in sustainability. I believe in eating within, 50 feet of your backyard.
Absolutely.
And if there ever was a time during COVID that we need to look at supply chains, like I was saying earlier, getting fruit from Peru might not be the best choice. We've got 30, 40 fruit trees of different fruits. Yep. And we're looking at doing beehives and really trying to bring a sustainable component to our lives. And that's really important.
Yep.
I don't care if you buy a bottle of Green Planet. Yes, it's been funding the show, but it's not about that. And yes, I wear the gear and
let's turn
Justin,
back
at
the
least you
clock
got to
a
get
little
some
bit, though.
benefit. Nobody probably cares, but Justin's never also asked me, hey man, can I have $1? He's never, ever, ever asked me. Every dollar that we've ever gotten from anything, as a matter of fact, goes right to the production. And
You put it back in.
because Justin has said this is going to be my way of giving back, obviously, because it's clearly, and then he gives something even more important, which is your time. You can't
Right.
put a dollar value on, and especially if people knew how much stuff he has going on. It's very, very valuable time.
Yeah, and
So-
conceptually, like rolling it back to like the nutrients do play a big role because it's a starting point for people and people who don't have the resources or like how long have you been working to build your organic farm and build
Years.
a sustainable lifestyle? It's been probably decades since you first thought of it, and
Rainwater collection to everything.
All of it.
It's there's so many links in that chain to make sure you're successful.
but you didn't have all of those things day one, and you had to learn how to grow a plant first, and
Totally.
a simple, effective, conventional nutrient is good for that. And it's good for people in urban centers to have access to grow food closer to home.
Yeah.
Then, if they're in an apartment and they have a balcony and, a couple windows with good light, that's all they can do, they can grow food and it's approachable. And when they transition their life in other ways or find, different places in the community to contribute and learn those pieces, it's just a starting point.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of positivity in that.
Yeah.
You notice too that we're not doing there's no "I got you, motherfucker" stuff in our videos.
Yeah.
It's about positivity. I'm the editor that when I has the final say on everything that goes on there. It's all going to be about positivity. If you've noticed, every single one of our things, it's never come in there to try and catch somebody. And that's what I find that I hate about a lot of the big content that you see out there. It's always about that. That's what it seems like. That's all we want to do to somebody is catch them in something. It's like, no, it's always going to be positive stories, always.
And I think I'm shocked at how we keep finding stories and unique people, from nuns growing cannabis to,
How about the junkyard grow guy?
we just did a junkyard grow in Nelson. Like some random guy pulls up beside the van. He's like, dude, you got to check out my grow. And he's doing light deprivation in the back of a pickup truck and
It's
a trampoline. He's cut in
coolest
half.
stuff.
Just weird shit, right? Like we just, this
and literally
industry-
a junkyard. Then just these big metal walls on either side. It's going to be the coolest looking episode.
He said junk is the new camouflage. That was his line.
I love that.
So it just all these things, right? Like that. These stories just keep evolving, and we're open to them, right?
Yep.
And like I said,
But you can always pick the negative in something.
oh for sure.
And
Listen,
you could
hey,
always knock somebody down for something they're not doing. It's like, no, everything is positivity, positivity, positivity.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of haters on our channel.
Well,
There's a
that's
couple, and I honestly I thought there'd be way more. I mean, some guy made fun of my beard because I'm getting old and I got rid of some of the gray. Big fucking deal. Hey, guess what?
Did look a little.
It looked a lot.
Painted on.
It looked a lot painted on. But at the end of the day, I really don't give a fuck. But I also want to look. We all want to look a little younger, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh man, a little
Like,
sparky youth never
Jesus
hurt anyone.
Christ. I'm not ripping open I'm not putting plastic in my tits. I'm just, I just dyed my fucking beard. Big deal. Right. Trying to feel, 35.
I love the aspect of doing the, shows like, Rural Grown Radio and Growing Exposed is, obviously we're in the industry, we're living it every day. We have been for a long time. And a lot of our viewers and listeners have also been there for, obviously there's a lot of new people, and there's going to continue to be a lot of new people over the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's still a very niche culture and industry.
Yeah.
And shows like what we're doing here, especially when you're bringing the integrity and the intent, like you're saying, bringing it with love and positivity. We are breaking that stigma down with every episode.
Totally.
Or at least trying to.
We're trying.
to
Every
do our
time we are.
part.
Yeah.
Every time we are.
And all I ask with that new person, come in with an open mind. We'd love to have you. Pay homage to the people that have paved the pathways, the people that have gone to jail, the people that have genuinely made sacrifices. Don't come in big dick swinging,
Totally.
but please listen and learn a few things along the way. And you know what? We're all on the same team. If you really want to put your stake in the ground and be an ambassador for cannabis, we need more of you.
Yeah.
We really do.
And be an ambassador for cultivation. Be an ambassador for that niche. Like
Yeah.
that's okay. Like find your role, because if if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's one thing that I really take away from you, Jeremy, is like your enthusiasm for your piece. And you're like, this is my piece. I own it. I dominate it.
Yeah, he loves it.
And I love that. It's
Yeah.
you feel it, and that's I think
can't
why we
not feel it.
connected so much in the early days. It's like, yeah, man, that's contagious. And
I wouldn't be half as good if it wasn't for him.
And we're just getting started. I'm telling
He
you, Justin, we're
gets
gonna,
me motivated.
we're gonna
He's the
kill
guy
this,
behind the
man.
camera. He's the guy behind. He'll throw out the odd question. He'll be like, none of this is. It's all ad libbed. It's all run and gun.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
yeah, we don't have a line producer
don't have
behind us
nothing.
telling us anything. It's
Yeah.
it's literally me,
This is
the camera, and
organic
usually this other guy, Jason.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, you've seen what it's like.
it's amazing and it's inspirational. And it's part of why we do what we do. And we've taken, a bit of note of that, of like, we're going to let it happen how it happens.
It
Because
has
that's
to be
the
organic.
magic.
It has to be real.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we even got called out for we did a black market grow. And, we paid homage to, having to go to the grow in the back of a van. You used to have sunglasses on. The amount of grows that I used to go to when I was a kid.
It's exactly
Where-
what it was
where I-
like. Every time we go to a trim party, you got in the back of a van.
Yeah. I didn't want to know what the grow was.
yeah.
That was part of a rule. You genuinely got in the back of a van and you went and people were like, that's not the way it is. That's not the way it was.
exactly what it was.
That's exactly the way it was.
Yeah, I don't know what world they're living in.
And there was a bunch of people being like, that's bullshit. That's all fabricated. Actually, no, it wasn't. That grow is a black market garden.
yeah.
Well,
By the way, all they have to do is, I don't know why they were saying that. All you have to do is look at the episode. These
fucking
were donkey
super
dicks, the
dangerous.
big 1,000 watt things
Like,
that are
you
hanging.
just burn
no
yourself on
legal.
not CSA, not
Nothing.
Not
If you
Dakota,
saw,
no.
yeah, if you saw just look at the pictures of you never could have that in any type of legal scenario. It's not CSA approved, like
And
you
that
said.
is
Yeah.
one of the
God,
good
no.
parts of legalization. I mean, for years up here, we live in a pretty peaceful, old hippie back to nature community up here. But there has been that aspect with the black market and some of the really far out grows where, young kids will come into town and have for years and just, put themselves on the side of the road looking for work and be fine with that, getting into a back of some random vehicle and going 2 or 3 hours out in the middle of the cut. And damn, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there unfortunately has been some people that have gone missing.
The most dangerous thing that used to happen back then was the rippers. That was that was happening for a few years, and then the medical changed that because as soon as the medical licenses were issued, people could start calling the cops.
And I mean, even during those days,
that was the biggest danger. Is people were coming in and they would be carrying guns, and they would. That was the biggest danger for.
I had
a while.
a business partner of mine. A funny story.
They were following people out of your retail store.
Yeah, like
remember
literally-
me and you were chasing after them. Do you remember?
I've had many encounters with rippers because the way I look at a ripper, if you have the stupidity to break into a garden in someone's house, it's premeditated theft, potential assault or murder, and these guys were doing it en masse, and they were having, we watched their MO. They'd have, people watching the store. They'd follow, and I mean, for a guy that's been looking in his rear view mirror for 15 years, I was able to identify them like that. And, customers would call me up and be like, hey, I just got followed at your store. I'm coming back to your store. And I would leave and they'd pick me up. And, I even had one of my business partners, Dan, jump in the van with me, jump in
You've
the car
called
with
me at least
Oh,
3-4 times.
It's happened numerous
a
times.
few times where he's like, "Where are you right now? We're going down here. There's guys near the store."
Yeah.
And I think one guy I remember it was the Maple Ridge one where I don't remember what he was, but I think we scared the shit out of him. I think he was just a sketched out weird dude, but it happened a few times.
Yeah.
Dozens of times. I mean, literally, they would some stores would be like, hey, they'd walk up to the car and they'd be like, we're waiting for your next customer to leave with a whole bunch of equipment and we're going to rip them off. It was blatant.
Wow.
That never happened at Pacific Northwest Garden Supply because I would hunt them down, follow them. I have very aggressive, beefy bumpers on my truck. And I drive a very old, shit-kicking truck. Dense from front to back. I love this truck. It's an 07 Dodge Ram, silver. And if you see me behind you and you're ripping off gardens, my bumper is going to go through the back of your vehicle. I've pushed vehicles off the road into ditches with my truck. I've then called the RCMP, the police, on me, saying I just got in a hit and run and I rear-ended somebody. Just so that I don't get charged with attempted murder, right? But yeah, I've done many, many, many aggressive moves against rippers. And I'm the only store owner that behaves that way. Because I refused, I will live and die by what's right.
Yeah, Justin won't back down from anybody.
incredible.
I've seen that.
We've heard of that.
I've been in a
from
meeting
sources.
with you, remember?
Yeah,
There was like
yeah.
5 guys, and I was thinking, Justin, you do realize it's just me and you, right?
Yeah.
And he told them, you will never step foot in my fucking store ever again. He's telling these gangster guys this. I don't know if they ever did come back. Probably not.
No, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. What's right is right. I don't value my life so much that, having kids has changed things for sure.
yeah.
But
Right.
I wasn't supposed to live past 25. Are you kidding me? I never thought about what happens tomorrow. I don't think about, I live in the moment. And at the moment, that person that's doing that is doing something wrong and they're risking my customer. They grow plants, I grow customers.
That's your
I
tribe.
pour myself into my customers. My customers, if you spend money with me, you take care of me, that's you saying that you trust me. Yeah. And that means everything to me. So regardless of the law, regardless of all these things, I don't really care. These people, growers, are trying to feed their families. They're doing something that, in my opinion, is very nonviolent, and they don't deserve to be ripped off. And there's been many cases of very hard, heavy encounters over the years, I would walk up to every car. If there was a car across the way in the parking lot, I would walk up to it. And it was either a cop undercover or a ripper.
Both of them sitting in the parking lot across the street right next to each other doing the exact same
it was
thing.
it was one or the other.
Oh, right.
Or some random dude that didn't know where he was.
Sometimes there's not a whole lot of difference either.
Yeah. And I would walk up and every single time I ever encountered a police officer, they'd always be like, I'm like, do you mind me asking why you're parked looking at my store? Because I've been broken into numerous times. And we used to get broken into all the time. And they would say, well, I'm a peace officer. I'm like, what is a peace officer? What does that mean? They'd always make up some bumbling story, right? Because
They're not
police that
used-
are watching stores never expect you to come and intercept them and start asking them questions. It doesn't work that way.
Yep.
But when it does work that way, they're bumbling fools. So, and then they'd fuck off. And if it was a ripper, you were able to identify very quickly. And we had really sound dealings on how to deal with this. And those were the days. I mean, it was fucking wild. Honestly.
It was crazy times, and it makes me think of kind of a statement that maybe I'd never even really thought before. Is a lot of the associated, violence within the cannabis industry was actually violence against the cannabis industry.
yeah.
It wasn't within.
Totally.
It was from external non-cannabis people coming in to try and capitalize on it, like they do at a jewelry store, like they do at
A bank.
any
bank,
other source of wealth that they perceive as vulnerable. That's what that element
We
now
were
that
the
people
most
call-
vulnerable. I mean, no
Yeah.
security, can't call cops.
can't call the cops. Now that-
can't have a gun in a lot of places.
That's right, even more trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the
Pretty
thing.
tough.
Now that people can call, it has virtually eliminated most of the issues. It was very common.
Here
That
too.
was crazy
Oh, yeah.
times, actually. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about all these episodes, are like, holy shit, that happened and that happened.
The whole story. I was even
Home
thinking of-
invasions here were pretty high there for a minute before legalization.
big time.
Even during the medical 215 here. I mean, there was definitely, every season, every harvest season, you'd hear of a couple that would be like, oh, that's horrible. All the trimmers got hogtied and then pistol whipped, or there was some that were pretty brutal, and obviously there was a few that people lost their lives over too.
Yeah.
It's not good.
we've got
right?
some-
It's not good.
some
But
good people.
I always thought that was a way of being preemptive, being proactive. If we get rid of the ripper at the store, we're going to avoid that potentially happening down the line. That's the way I looked at it.
Yep.
And then when I had children, it got really bad. Because if you followed me home, I'm like,
Papa Bear.
Papa Bear, there was a few major encounters where, oh, you're following the wrong guy home. I have a child at home.
Yeah.
now it's not looking good for you. And,
No.
and you know, they're not expecting that bumper coming through their window at 40 kilometers an hour. You
Right?
know, they're not. You know,
Pays
and-
to have an old truck.
yeah, but yeah, I can't believe I'm telling this story. But yeah, there was some crazy shit that's happened over the years. You
Right.
asked the question originally about coming to California.
Yes. Yes, and which
Jeremy
was an
answered-
honor, Jeremy.
yeah.
Thank you. I didn't realize I was that much of a catalyst for it.
Oh,
So
you-
that is a lot. I appreciate
Well,
that.
I never thought about it, and then I just thought, well, why else were we here?
Yeah. And I go back a
No,
little.
but seriously,
I
why
go back
else
a
were we
little
here?
further. I go back
Yeah.
a little further, right? Because my mentor was Larry from GH. I said that earlier. And I had strong ties to the GH family.
Right.
And I used to come down here for, at least twice a year and just be in this really awesome zone. And then I'd come up here and I'd see the farmers and I'd just meet the people, and I was just really engaged. I've had a really strong tie to this area, and I love it here, right? It's people are very like-minded. They have, Dennis and I, when I picked up Geopot in Canada, I was like, Dennis and I had an instant connection, and I've got along really, really well with him, and there's a mutual respect, and you just either get it or you don't.
You guys are cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways. I
Yeah.
can
Yes.
totally see how you guys have met and been like, hey,
Yeah.
it's going to work for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, like I know I have an ally there, right? I know I have an ally with a lot of people here, and it's an honor to be able to come down and tell the story of a lot of people here.
I
Right?
agree. Yeah.
It really is. There's no nutrient manufacturer that's doing a story, or there's no wholesaler that's like, let's do the owners don't do this shit.
No.
Right? Like, the owners don't visit stores. I still visit stores. Right? Like, owners of nutrient companies,
Justin can't drive by a store.
without going to it.
He can't. He can't help himself.
Yeah,
It's
We
like
do the
you and
same.
John from Cutting Edge. That's about it.
John from Cutting Edge is the only one that I know that visits stores.
Yeah.
The moment the moment nutrient manufacturers make nutrients, they get their sales out, and I'll just go drive my Maserati.
And what did you say about you're like, we need to go talk to John when we were out in Denver, and
I like John a
and there was a
lot.
great
Oh, yeah.
clip in there telling him how much he loves them and what an amazing dude he is in the industry, and that goes back to that part of what he's saying. He doesn't hate.
No.
You know?
We're
John's a great
ambassadors.
guy.
We're
Yeah.
ambassadors for this industry.
Yep.
We fortunately have an opportunity to highlight the great parts within this industry. That's a real honor and a real privilege. And along the way, this industry has had so many characters. The characters in this space are amazing. Like, there's a lot of characters.
Really, there are. And, Arcata, Northern Humboldt has been just a melting pot of cannabis people escaping the oppression of other places before any legalization hit, after Proposition 215 hit. And so you have the deep back to the earth, rootsy people that have been here, the locals that built it and have been here for generations. And I say all the respect to them, because there's so many of us who really got so much benefit and are trying to help spread that benefit now and
Totally.
just be a part of it. And it's really amazing the people that ended up coming out of that mass migration
Totally.
in the late 90s and early 2000s to Humboldt County.
And we really need to pay homage to those people.
Yeah.
Because they were the trailblazers, they were the rebels, they were the guys. And I'm really happy when I see them transition to the legal market and succeed, or work for a legal grow, because that's their passion. Like, and if you're a legal, the ones that are succeeding in Canada that are licensed producers are the ones that have actually taken on people from the black market and employed them and learned that this is an art. This isn't silviculture. This isn't growing tomatoes or peppers. This is cannabis cultivation, and there is a true art to it. And there is, they are relevant. And it's really important that we, in my opinion, take them along for the ride.
Yeah, we
So,
agree. It's hard to get them out too because of the history of it all. You know, to try to get some of those folks to come out and be willing to get on a camera and get in front of a microphone.
It's getting easier.
And it is.
It's getting easier. It was
one
really
of
hard 6 years ago.
One of your old episodes, a couple of seasons ago, an old dear friend of mine, Brian with Dragon with Matches.
Yeah.
You
He's a good dude.
We've known each other
super
since
good.
we've known each other since we're 16. You know, on the East Coast, and you know, not only has he always been very private, very, you know, just underground, but also just an amazing cannabis grower. Super passionate. Learned a lot from him over the years, especially in our early days. And, you know, I remember listening to him speak on that episode and just being so proud of him as an old friend, you know, because he broke through that, maybe that fear or just the uncomfortable feeling of being able to get on camera and actually speak and deliver the goods. And I was really proud of him. That episode was.
Do you know
took
why
a lot
that
of pride
was
in that.
also so important? Because in 40 years, people are going to look back at this and we might think, oh, no big deal. Especially even on the West Coast, we think, we're just so used to seeing this. We're so used to it. What we don't realize is like that video of that mountain is very much what black market was. And that was illegal at the time in the sense of it was prior to 2018. I believe it was that. I remember thinking
It was just transitioning.
It was that September.
Yeah.
And it was December or January. When did it go? Was it
2018.
Yeah.
But it was 2 months later, 3 months later, and I realized this is the last moment.
Last outdoor harvest.
We can recreate stuff, we can pretend, but that was the last outdoor harvest. And I've got all this footage from Humboldt, the epicenter, and it will be exactly that of him.
That was a magic season. And
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, as you may not even think it's not that historic, but it's the longer it goes, the more historical that will be. Imagine the year before alcohol became legal.
Right.
If you would have that footage,
Yeah.
right? 70, 80 years later.
We're capturing moments in time.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And the show is going to evolve as the industry evolves. But it's so interesting to me to have that story on camera and then to tell it in another 20 years or another 30 years or somebody else. Maybe my son will be telling that story using that footage and going, this is what they used to do back in the old days.
And I think capturing some of these people that are going to be giants in the industry when they were in their bubble on the side of a mountain somewhere, there's some magic in history to that. You know, like Brian's doing amazing work now. They're out there promoting the Kangen water. They're doing the Dragon Wagon consulting. So they got this massive RV and they're cruising around and teaching Korean natural farming, sustainable gardening techniques,
Yep.
IPM. And he's somebody that, proof is in the pudding. You've got the footage that was doing it successfully. And that's the thing. There are so many people out there who are like, oh, I know how to do this. I took 3 courses and now I'm going to go teach people for a living. But they've never had the practical experience of
They don't have the
doing.
pedigree.
They don't. And that's where people like Brian really shine to me. So like, yeah, check out the Dragon Wagon and Dragon Consulting on Instagram.
Scarlet Fire too. Scarlet Fire Farms, I believe. on
Scarlet Fire
Instagram, right?
Farms, yeah.
No, he's such a rad dude. He's just like, you know,
Yep.
it's such a honor to be able to highlight people like him, Cuban grew in Colorado, and just the cultures, you know. And it's so funny. Like as a show, I would have thought by now it'd have been like, well, there's another cannabis plant, you know. But every day, new ideas, new concepts, new people are doing things, new technologies are coming into the industry. So it's just this, and we're still in its infancy.
Big time.
Right? And
Right, I can't believe that, you know, this many years later, this industry's still in its infancy, and you're a veteran if you've got 8 years in, 10 years in.
Yeah.
You literally would be called a veteran or an OG or whatever.
Right.
Not ocean grown, but you know, I mean, so it's blowing my mind to see the evolution And it's been, like I said, a real honor to be able to highlight some people like that.
And we're documenting it and showing the world.
Yeah,
I mean, we get people all over the world watching the show. That's what's so unique about YouTube.
Yeah, because it's universal access pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm a big deal in Europe.
Right on. So you and me are going.
No, it's hilarious, right? Like, but who would have thought? Like, I'm not a big deal in Europe, but I mean, who would have thought that there'd be this platform to be able to show a world something that we were passionate about or are passionate about?
Yeah, and one thing I would love to see too is like, we're telling the stories of Humboldt and some of these underground places on the West Coast. There are so many unique cultivation communities that exist all over the U.S. and all over the world that we're not getting to capture in this way. Like, as a younger man, I went to Florida a lot, and there's a huge community of Cubans
Massive.
cultivating down there and cultivating really good cannabis, especially for the time when they were
grow the
doing
black.
It. They drew
Black
the black
Domina.
and the Black Widow,
Yeah.
and some really, really cool, unique strains,
Yeah.
and like they were curing it in Spanish cedar, like they cure tobacco, and like bringing out phenols and characteristics that were just different than a lot of the cannabis that I had been exposed to in the Midwest or, throughout other travels. And I know there's communities like that in other places. In Michigan, there was, a huge migrant community that came up and did farm work, and they grew a ton of cannabis on the farms. And that was the green bud we saw in the fall, was coming out of these other communities that were bringing pieces of, cultivation culture from Mexico and South America into our community. So I think that's one thing that we're all lucky enough right now to be in these positions to start to tell those stories, and people are going to come as it's safer in those places and being like, hey, I'm doing this, come tell the story. And I look forward to hearing from those people and like the opportunity to share those other really unique
If people have a
clicks.
good idea, go to growingexposed@gmail.com and email us your ideas. Or if you, any of the
all ears.
listeners, we're all ears. That's how we get these ideas for the show. A lot of people see that, we use Green Planet Nutrients in the thing. It's because that's the people that we are in touch with,
Yeah.
But if people reach out and tell us great stories about, we travel all over the place. So next time we're in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Pre-COVID, we were booked to Australia, booked to Germany,
We were going to go to the desert, Oklahoma,
Rift
Indiana.
Mountains, Morocco. Like literally, we had all these like
That was going to be the craziest year.
we had all these major plans, and it's just like, thank God, we had 8 or 9 episodes in the can pre-COVID, so we had a lot of content that we didn't need to go out and get.
And that's a lucky thing. We were just getting ready to launch Royal Grown Radio, just like at MJ BizCon and a couple events right before COVID hit. We had our equipment and we're still figuring out how to use it and starting to try and get content. And then COVID hit, and we had to rethink the entire format because it was going to be on the road telling the stories of running into people like you and just what we do on the day to day. And that changed so much, and I'm so happy that it did, because it really allowed us to bring what connects us so much. And again, I think that's just telling the human story and letting people share their stories. And so thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us and sharing your story in this really amazing and unique way, because you blew my mind
Me too.
wide open. Some of the history, the stories, the friendship, the fights, like
I forgot most of
that's
everything. Like
amazing.
honestly, there's so much stuff that came up that I've forgotten about. Like just day to day, you just go about your day, but so much has happened.
And that's why we don't script things, because you guys come in and you're like, you have questions, we're like, nope, we just talk, because that's when we all feel like our true selves and let it flow. So thanks for doing this with us.
It's been a real honor.
No, and I'm really, when you told me about the fact that you were doing this Royal Grown Radio, honestly, just keep doing what you're doing. Super proud of it. The minute you called me, I did whatever I could to give you my advice on whatever I could. I see you're using the mics that I
Right here.
at least advised you to use, and just those little, because I love that kind of stuff. But it's really, I know it's not easy to just go, I'm going to go do this, and you guys just need to keep doing that, what you're doing, and it's really important.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think you just keep banging your head against the wall. That's just human nature. Anyone that's succeeded or done anything great believed in it and just kept banging your head against the wall until one day, holy crap, we've done something great.
Hey, so obviously I filmed this today, and I'm going to put this on our channel. So right now we got over 100,000 subscribers.
Excellent.
So to those 100,000 subscribers, where can they find you?
They can find us at royalgrownradio.com, and that'll link you to all of the platforms. We're available on YouTube at Royal Grown Radio, Instagram, Royal Grown Radio. We are all over the place and coming to new formats as quick as we possibly can, and we appreciate everyone just giving a chance, taking a listen, and keep doing what you do at home. We really appreciate it, and one day we hope to be chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Once again from Royal Grown Radio, this is Micheal Beck.
And I'm Rick Elliot.
We've got Justin Cooper and Jeremy Deichen of Growing Exposed. We'll see you again next time.